We picture ancient Rome as a city of gleaming white marble. By the early 15th century, the reality was starkly different. Cattle grazed in the city center, and locals in peasant cloaks wandered past massive, stripped brick skeletons. For centuries, the people living among these ruins did not view them as historical artifacts. To the medieval mind, these towering husks were either the work of demons or, more practically, giant, convenient rock quarries. The city's remaining classical statues, carved facades, and marble columns met a brutal fate. They were systematically hauled away, shattered, and fed into roaring kilns, burned down to powder to make cheap mortar. As observers at the time pointed out, the new buildings constructed with this mortar were pitiful. The only actual beauty left in Rome belonged to the crumbling ruins themselves, like this ancient Roman tomb, swallowed and repurposed into a crude medieval fortress. The capital of the ancient world nearly vanished under the utilitarian indifference of its own descendants. The initial response to this decay was a kind of romantic melancholy. Writers like Dante wandered the city, looking at the rubble and writing elegies about a lost golden age. But poetic longing cannot stop a lime kiln. Saving the physical remnants of antiquity required a shift toward physical intervention. Scholars like Poggio Bracciolini started getting their hands dirty. They stopped passively observing and began treating the centuries of accumulated dirt, roots, and overgrowth as physical obstacles to be cleared away. They realized that the carved stones buried in the mud were physical proof. They were the empirical evidence of the ancient Latin and Greek texts they had been translating in their libraries. This is a surviving Roman inscription, and it shows the exact type of data they were after. They began physically tracing and recording these Latin capital letters directly from the stones, building an on-the-ground database of historical records. History became a physical truth, dug directly out of the ground, rather than a theoretical exercise confined to remote monastery archives. This empirical obsession drove scholars like Ciriaco d'Ancona to travel endlessly across the Mediterranean. He systematically tracked down and sketched these inscriptions in his journals before they could be destroyed. When asked why he undertook such agonizing, endless labor, Ciriaco gave a simple answer that defined the entire movement. He did it to wake the dead. Yet the rise of the Renaissance introduced a bitter irony. The newfound cultural obsession with antiquity actually accelerated the physical destruction of the original ruins. Popes and wealthy nobles claimed to admire the ancient world, but they pillaged its remaining structures. They cannibalized columns and statuary from the old temples to decorate their massive new palaces. The scholars were trapped in a desperate race against their own society's explosive cultural growth. They were scrambling to record the past in the brief window before the builders of the future ground it into dust. The fate of Rome could not be decided by independent scholars alone. It required the highest institutional authority, controlled by Pope Leo X. Leo gave the young Raphael a new mandate as his official antiquary, placing the survival of the city's architecture in his hands. Raphael recognized that hoarding loose statues and copying isolated sentences provided incomplete data. To understand Roman engineering, they had to document the complete spatial context of the buildings themselves. This is the survey methodology Raphael formalized, establishing standards we still use today. The first step was mapping the ground plan, revealing the underlying logic of the building's layout. Next came full elevations and cross-sections, allowing them to reverse engineer the mechanics of ancient domes. Armed with this data, Raphael wrote a passionate, detailed letter to the Pope. He laid out a legal framework to immediately halt the systematic devastation of the ancient city. Raphael's survey created a comprehensive record of ground plans and elevations that remains a standard for architectural study. These scholars shifted the status of the ruin from raw material to historical record, ensuring that even as the marble was looted, the knowledge of how to build it remained.